If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. Completely free. I love free. I'm sure you love free. So that should be motivation enough. But the cool thing about it is, it allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And now, back to the show. Hey guys, I'm Christina Prudent, and this is Enchanted Ink. Hello, welcome, pull up a chair. We're headed back into the Potterverse today, but this time we're talking about creatures. I think you've heard me use this word before, actually in the Dragon Rider episode, but for those who aren't familiar, magical and mythical creatures that are claimed to exist but never proven are called cryptids. And the people who study them and try to prove their existence are called cryptozoologists. Cryptozoology is not respected by the academic world, and it's considered a pseudoscience. But I, for one, am not completely prepared to rule this stuff out. And if you're listening to this show, probably neither are you. The way I see it, we continue to discover new or lost species all the time. So at this point, you can't convince me that some of these things don't exist. Maybe we just can't prove it yet. In this episode, I'm going to focus on some of the cryptids that we see in the world of Harry Potter and their real-world explanations. We'll be pulling not only from the Harry Potter series, but also from the Hogwarts library book, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, written by Newt Scamander, but really by J.K. Rowling. And to give a bit of background on the Hogwarts library collection, first of all, it consists of 3 books, The Tales of Beetle the Bard, Quidditch Through the Ages, and Fantastic Beasts. And they're Harry Potter companion books, written to offer more detail and more color into particular topics introduced within the series. So these are the books that we see Harry, Ron, and Hermione using or reading at different points throughout the story, which is why they're quote-unquote authored by Harry Potter characters. They're actually very cute and super fun to read and just great to have as part of your collection. They were originally written in 2001, and 80% of the royalties went to the British charity called Comic Relief. So I haven't been able to locate a more recent number, but as of 2008, the books had earned over $30 million. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is essentially a creature encyclopedia written as a Hogwarts textbook. And it has since spun off into a film franchise following the tale of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald and his rise and fall, but we'll be focusing on the original book and the zoological findings of Newt Scamander. I think we'll start with one of the most popular creatures that we all associate with fantasy and magic. Unicorns. The unicorn is a mythical creature resembling a white horse, but with a single pointed horn on its forehead. And in European folklore, it sometimes has a beard like a goat. But unicorn legends are old and date back to antiquity. They appear in early Mesopotamian art, as well as ancient Indian, Greek, and Chinese mythology. But our idea of unicorns now in contemporary representations is based on depictions from the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. They're described as wild woodland creatures, and, well, Harry Potter sanitizes this a bit by saying that they'll only let girls touch them, but traditionally they can only be approached and touched by a virgin. So unicorns felt like a natural place to start the creature discussion because everything about them is so powerful. Their horns were said to have the power to heal sickness and make poisoned water drinkable. So during medieval times, at the height of these myths, unicorn horn cups were very popular. But most everything that was supposedly made of unicorn horn back then was actually made of either rhino or narwhal horn. Another super interesting little fun fact is that they're believed to be the natural enemy of the lion, and that's why the unicorn was adopted as the symbol of Scotland, because the symbol of the English royals is the lion. And back then, in the 1700s, long before the creation of the United Kingdom, Scotland was bitterly opposed to the colonization by the English. Now, in terms of Harry Potter, we first see unicorns in the Harry Potter series in Book 1 in the Forbidden Forest. Voldemort is killing them and drinking their blood to stay alive. The blood is, of course, magical, so it does the job, but by killing something as pure as a unicorn, he's forever cursed. Also recall from the Wands episode that unicorn hair is one of the 3 magical materials or conductors that Ollivander uses at the core of his wands, along with dragon heartstring and phoenix feather. So now we understand why and how unicorns became a symbol of purity and rarity. And as far as magical cryptids go, they're among the most powerful. They're fully enchanted from head to toe. So it absolutely makes sense that they're just as popular today as they were during the Renaissance, if not more. Next, let's talk about mermaids. After the ad break, because I want to hear Shane sing first.
This iTunes Top 5 album is out now.
I put a spell on you, yeah, 'cause you're mine.
Featuring epic brand new pop anthems and classic big band hits.
You won't admit you love me.
From me, British singer-songwriter Shane Hampshire.
Your side, let the rain fall down on me.
Search for Shane Hampshire's debut album, available to stream now.
Okay, let's get into mermaids. Another creature of folklore that is as old and widespread as humans are. Anywhere there's water, there's mermaid lore. So in the interest of time, I'm going to focus this discussion around the Western world. Mermaids are aquatic creatures with the head and upper body of a human and the tail of a fish. And we always say tail of a fish, but it's really more like a seal or dolphin because they're very rarely described as having scales. They're supposedly very beautiful with long flowing hair that they're usually combing while gazing at their reflections, either in a mirror or in the water itself. And though they mostly are thought to inhabit the ocean, they can sometimes be found in rivers and calm lakes as well. Now, the Western concept of mermaids is very much influenced by Greek mythology. Triton, the son of Poseidon, is said to have been half man, half fish. And if you're not familiar with him from the mythology, I think most will recognize him as the father of Ariel in Disney's The Little Mermaid. Anyway, the Greek sirens have come to be associated with mermaids over time, although originally they were described as half woman, half bird, given wings by Demeter to go find Persephone after she was taken by Hades. It was sometime around the Middle Ages that the two legends merged and they became associated with mermaids instead. The sirens lured sailors to their deaths by enchanting them with their beautiful singing. So that's another thing that has become a mermaid attribute, but started with the sirens. Any man who heard the siren's song was powerless to resist the call and would either jump overboard to join them or crash their ship into the rocks trying to reach them. Speaking of sirens, little sidebar, they can have one or two tails, like the Starbucks logo, which is based off a 16th century Norse depiction. And I didn't think to look what countries do and don't have Starbucks, but for anyone that doesn't know, Starbucks is the most popular coffee chain, coffee shops in the US. Anyway, mermaids are also highly venerated in African and Caribbean folklore. Remember in the Orisha episode, we talked about how Yemoja, goddess of the tides, is often depicted as a mermaid. But in Yoruba and Voodoo, mermaids are not so much creatures, but water spirits. They're called Mamiwata on English-speaking islands, or La Sirène in Haitian Creole, and seeing them would bring you great fortune. They often abducted people and brought them to their realm underwater, and when an abducted person returned, they A, had more hair than they left with, and B, they grew wealthier, more attractive, and more easygoing than they were before. And apparently, at least in the Haitian folklore, once you make contact with the mermaid, you're connected with her spirit for the rest of your life. And a common power that a lot of survivors come back with is the ability to read tarot cards, to read the future. Incidentally, this is pretty much the opposite of European mermaid lore, as they thought seeing mermaids at sea was a bad omen, meaning a storm was coming. In Harry Potter, we meet mermaids in Goblet of Fire, in the lake at Hogwarts when Harry has to save Ron, and ultimately everyone else, during the Triwizard Tournament. They're cold water mermaids, which, according to Fantastic Beasts, makes a difference, and they are not beautiful. They have green, scaly skin, gills, and sharp, pointy teeth. And they're described as kind of barbaric, definitely not the Disney-fied mermaids that we're used to. Next, we're going back to ancient Greece to talk about the phoenix. In ancient mythology, the phoenix is a large, swan-like magical bird that lives to incredible old age, 500 years by most accounts that I saw. At the end of its life, it builds a nest of the finest aromatic woods and bark like cinnamon and frankincense, and it ignites itself with a single clap of its wings and bursts into flames. After death, it regenerates, rising again from the ashes as a chick. That's why the phoenix is considered the ultimate symbol of resilience and rebirth. Even now, it's a very common phrase to say, they rose from the ashes. That figure of speech comes from the idea of the phoenix. It's described as radiant, with bright red, purple, and gold feathers. And even though it has the size and talons of a predator, it doesn't kill and only eats herbs. The phoenix song is also magical. It's said to inspire courage in the pure of heart and strike fear into the hearts of the unworthy. And we see all of this play out with Fawkes, Professor Dumbledore's phoenix in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. In the book, Harry's down in the chamber facing off with the memory of Tom Riddle, aka Voldemort, when he basically begins to pray for help. Fawkes swoops in, drops the sorting hat at his feet, and begins to sing. And suddenly, Harry feels hopeful and strong, and he's able to pull the sword of Gryffindor out of the hat. We also see another magical phoenix power in that scene after Harry gets poisoned by the basilisk. Fawkes lays her head on Harry's arm and begins to cry because phoenix tears can heal any wound. And fun fact, a tail feather from Fawkes' tail is the magical core that powers Harry's wand. Speaking of Chamber of Secrets, the last cryptid we're going to cover today is the basilisk. The basilisk is a uniquely European monster, regarded as the king of snakes and the most poisonous creature to have ever lived. It's described in Fantastic Beasts as a bright green serpent that can reach up to 50 feet in length and, given a sufficient food source, live for hundreds of years. The males have a scarlet plume on their heads like a rooster, or some medieval texts even describe it as being a rooster with a serpent's tail. That's almost certainly a nod to its origin story, which says that basilisks are created by hatching a chicken egg beneath a toad. It's incredibly deadly. Some accounts say that even its breath is poisonous, but all of the lore agrees that the poison in its fangs is strong enough to kill a man in minutes, and any well or water source it drinks from will be tainted for centuries. The basilisk has large yellow eyes, and looking directly into them will cause instant death. Thankfully, no one died in Harry Potter through a series of incredibly lucky circumstances. Mrs. Norris the cat saw the reflection of the basilisk through a puddle. Colin Creevey saw it through his camera. Justin Finch-Fletchley saw it through Nearly Headless Nick, who is a ghost and therefore already dead. And Hermione was smart enough to figure everything out and look around corners with a mirror. So they were all only petrified rather than killed because none of them looked directly into the monster's eyes. Very, very clever of J.K. Rowling. Now, according to the legends, the only ways to kill it are to infect it with its own venom, the way Harry did, the odor of a weasel, which apparently made it weak enough to slay, or for it to hear the crow of a rooster, which would kill it instantly. I honestly love some of this medieval folklore because it's weird. But that's it. What a fun episode. I had a great time researching this one. But okay, let's get weird for a sec. It's suspicious at best that so many of these creatures date back to the absolute beginning of human record. Again, cryptozoology is dismissed as pseudoscience and never taken seriously, but we discover new species all the time. The stories of the Kraken were thought to be completely fabricated, sensationalized fisherman tales. There's just no way that a giant tentacled creature lived in the ocean that we hadn't discovered. Until the colossal squid was finally discovered in the 70s. The 70s! Okay, point being, we've become arrogant in the modern day. We don't know everything. And evolution could have gone in directions that are now lost to us over time. At this point, you really can't convince me that certain cryptids are impossible. They may not be as humanoid or as pretty as we imagined, and maybe their horns weren't magical, but you're just not going to sit here and tell me that there's nothing new under the sun and we've seen it all. It's really only recently that we realized that some dinosaurs had feathers. So I'm hoping that in our lifetime, we discover something amazing. And truthfully, my money's on mermaids. If you have any theories on cryptids or thoughts about the show, tweet them to me. I haven't met enough of you on Twitter yet. You can find me there at enchantedingpod or on Facebook and Instagram at enchantedingpodcast. And if you enjoy the show and want to hear more, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever you like to listen. See you next time.